Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 3 of the ultimate guide to snooker. So far I've done a couple episodes where I've went through like your basic setup of how you're going to actually hold the snooker cue and your stance and grip and bridge hand, everything like that. And then last week, episode 2 was about potting angles, cue action and sighting. So this week I'm actually going to start looking into cue ball control and playing your basic spin shots, which is just looking at top spin, stun shot and screw back. So I'm going to show you today how I do these shots like technically, what you need to look out for, the easiest way to play these shots, and also give you some good little practice routines you can try to really get used to these new spin shots. So we're in episode 3, but obviously all these things I'm showing you, could take, say, weeks or even months to get used to these different parts I'm showing you. Snooker is obviously a very hard game that we need to put a lot of practice into. So, don't just think because I'm doing this by episode 3 that you should be at this stage really quickly. I'm just working through, like I say, the different parts of the game that eventually you want to be looking at to try and become obviously a good snooker player. So what we're going to do is just a straight shot into the middle pocket and start looking at, like I say, your basic spin shots and how we can start moving the cue ball about the table a bit. So the first shot we're going to do is top spin. So basically, top spin is definitely the easiest shot to play, I would say, because generally the cue ball, I always say to people, almost wants to go forward just naturally because of the weight of the ball, and it doesn't need much power or any much effort to get the cue ball moving. So I'm going to try and pop this red in a good little practice we're going to do is just to try and run the white into the pocket as well. So it just shows us if we're actually getting the white moving with the top spin, but also just a little test to see if we're cueing nice and straight. So I'll just play one for you, then I'll talk through what I'm actually doing to get the top spin. So you can see there, potted the red and the whites went through as well, nice and straight with top spin and into the pocket. So I know I've done what I wanted there. So how I play top spin basically is that the first thing we need to do is get the tip, obviously, towards the top of the cue ball. So the way I do that is basically just using my bridge hand. So if I go down to address the ball and actually just go down to pretty much centre ball, then all I would do from there is raise my knuckles to get to the top of the white. And then I'm in a good position there to play the top spin shot. I don't need to be mega high up here, otherwise we could start miscuing. As long as I'm quite high, and the other thing is I'm going to show you is keeping the cue nice and parallel, then that's going to start creating some top spin for us. So again, you can see here, I can just go towards the centre of the cue ball and then I could raise the bridge hand just to give you a good idea of how I would get to the top. I wouldn't do that on a normal shot. I'm just giving you, like I say, an idea there of how I raise my knuckles and hand a bit to get the tip to the top of the white. What you don't want to do is when you go down to the shot, what a lot of people start doing as well is they start lifting the whole cue from the back as well. So you can see as soon as I lift the back of the cue, basically the tip is going to go down. So in theory, you're basically, you're doing the wrong thing basically, because you're going to start hitting down through the ball, and actually sometimes you don't get as much top spin as you want. So when I say go higher, it's only the bridge hand that goes higher. We don't lift the cue from the back at all. So when I'm playing these 3 shots I'm going to show you today, my back part of the cue with me grip and my arm just stays in the same place for all the shots, and I just move my bridge hand up or down depending on where I want to hit the cue ball. So quite high with the bridge hand. Cue's nice and parallel. And you'll be able to see here that I'll just follow through nicely the top of the ball. So my tip stays nice and high right through the shot. It doesn't come down, it doesn't go up too much. That cue there is just staying lovely and parallel. So I've hit the cue ball exactly where I intended, and then finished. Again, these are the little parts I was talking about last week with the cue action. I've still got the 4 points touching there, and me backhand, me thumb, has just come into contact with my chest. So them few little key parts there that I spoke about last week with the cue action, we can really start seeing now how it all starts to come together. So again, when you're practicing these shots, I would say give it a good few goes, maybe 10 shots or even more, and count even how many you're potting of the red and how many of the white's actually following through to the pocket. Obviously, sometimes when we play this shot, just to give you an example, you might pot the red just slightly into the side of the pocket, like that, and you see that the white isn't going to go into the pocket as well. So I would still say that's quite a good shot because we've potted the ball and we've still actually got the top spin to run through to the cushion. All that means there is that you're obviously slightly offline. Like I say, the red's winning the side of the pocket rather than the middle of the pocket. So it's something you can look out for, and just sometimes try to slightly adjust your line if you feel like it's going one way. Like sometimes there'll be a little pattern in the way that you play the shots. Right, the next shot we're going to look at, which I think is, obviously these are all important shots, but it's probably the shot that I would say I use probably the most is a stun shot. And obviously there's like little variations on that as well, but we're just going to look again at the basic stun shot today and how you go about playing that. So obviously setup wise, exactly the same as the last shot. The only thing that's going to change now again is where I'm going to hit the cue ball. And again, how I do that is by just adjusting my bridge hand to now going lower. So a stun shot is potting the red in the middle pocket and the white should stop straight away. So I'll just show you that to give you an idea what I mean. So nice and straight, and the white stops dead straight away. So you'll probably be able to see there as well. For me, I think for it to be a proper stun shot, obviously the cue ball should stop at impact when it hits the object ball, and you should be able to see the blue spot there like that. A lot of people think that the white should actually finish on the blue spot, but obviously that would mean that the cue balls just ran forward a little bit. So for me, when you're getting used to these shots, you want to try and practice to be perfect or as good as you can be on these shots. So we've got to try and be really precise and getting used to these short little shots. So same again, just want it to stop straight away. So you can see there the cue ball's not moving at all. And again, we can see the blue spot there. So that cue ball stopped straight away. So again, just to give you a good idea of where I'm going to hit the cue ball, you can see now that I'm hitting, I would say, below centre. So I've just lowered my bridge hand down again a little bit. The back of the cue hasn't moved at all. And then I'm just going to make sure, nice smooth backswing and follow through that point. So you can see there again, I'm going through that point and the 4 points are touching and my hand still hit my chest again. So like I said before, these spin shots, I'm not really changing my technique too much at all what I'm doing, so that I'm building up this good sort of muscle memory. So a lot of shots feel very similar basically, and I can repeat them over and over again. All I'm doing, like I say, is changing my bridge hand up and down to get a different result. So again, when I'm showing you these shots, I'm just giving you a good idea of what I do on the shot, where I hit the cue ball, and how the shot works and feels for me. But obviously, a lot of this you're going to have to figure out yourself, and you know, it's going to be very close to obviously what I'm doing. That's why I'm showing you that. But just when you're down the shot, you might think I'm hitting just below center. You play the shot, but then the white went through a bit like that, you see. So it's went forward from the blue spot. So that you just need to have the stop for a couple of seconds and think, well, why has that happened? So obviously if the cue balls went forward a bit too much, that means that you're basically just hitting a bit too high in the cue ball. And also, the thing I'm going to talk about is we've got to just play it at the right speed as well, just to create that little bit of spin, basically, so we can play that stun shot. So I'll try now going a little bit lower, because I'm trying to learn from the last shot that I was too high. So a little bit lower. I've lowered my bridge hand, go through. But now you can see that the cue ball has started to actually come back a little bit. So again there, all I've done is hit a bit lower on the cue ball, and it's give us a totally different result. And this is what practice is a lot about experimenting and trying different things and finding out what works for you. So now I'm going to try and learn from them 2 shots and just see if I can find that right point on the cue ball where hopefully it should stop. So there's the nice stun shot that was said before. So in practice, we're basically trying to have obviously good fundamentals and good technique where we can play these shots hopefully over and over again, but we've got to learn from what's actually happening on the table, and that's going to be also a big way of how you can improve. So another really common thing is with now we're playing a stun shot is a lot of people think we'll have to hit the ball hard, and as you can see so far, I haven't really hit a shot particularly hard at all. And the main reason is because we're playing a short shot. So I don't need to create a lot of spin to get the cue ball to stop just where that red is. And that's something else I'm just going to go over a little bit in this video is we'll have to allow for different things like the length of the shot. The main thing between obviously the white ball and the object ball. Also, other things that do come into consideration is even the table a bit, the cloth and stuff like that can all react differently. So that's why I'm saying, you've got to practice these things, and it might take weeks of practice until you can really feel comfortable with what you're doing. But this kind of shot, like I say, it's just a short shot, so I'm just not hitting it too hard. I'm just creating just enough backspin. You'll be able to see the white skin a little bit here, possibly. And then the spots just stop there straight away as well. And obviously this is the kind of stuff that I would work on when I was obviously younger, a junior player, just until basically it just felt like, I could do it on autopilot. So the third shot we're going to look at today is screw back. I know obviously a lot of you do struggle with screw back. It's probably the most requested thing I've had on all the comments on different videos. So I have already done quite a few in-depth videos about screw back. So go and check them out on the channel if you need to. But obviously I'm going to look at it now as well. So again, with screw back, the reason it's the hardest shot is basically, again, the cue ball doesn't want to come backwards. So compared to the top spin shot where naturally the cue ball wants to go forward, now the cue ball doesn't really want to come back. It's fighting against sort of physics. So the technique obviously has to be good, and we do have to start playing shots just that little bit firmer. So I'll give you an idea here first how I would do it, then I'll talk through how I'm doing it. So a straight shot, trying to get screw back. Nice bit of spin, just slightly offline, but pretty good screw back. So again with the screw back, technique wise, all I'm going to do is lower my bridge hand again so I can get me tip down to the bottom of the cue ball. I think what you've got to be careful of with this, and what I've seen quite a lot in lessons, is people will lower their bridge hand and sometimes the knuckles go a bit too flat and the thumb also drops too low, and basically they lose a lot of support and stability with the bridge hand because they're trying to go so low. So I try and keep the bridge hand as solid as I can, the normal V that I showed you in episode 1 of this guide, and then just try and lower it. But we've got to keep that stability there. So I'll just do one more. So nice and low on the cue ball. Nice pull back. Follow through. That time a little bit straighter, so you can see that time it's come back, this time into this middle pocket. And just to give you a good idea, if I was at middle of the ball to do screw back, I would just literally lower the bridge there. So then my tip's nicely at the bottom. But then again, the setup's all the same. 4 points touching. Nice backswing. And follow through the bottom there. And you can see I'm starting to create some good backspin. I'm probably playing that shot, like I say, just a little bit firmer than the first 2 shots. And that's just, like I say, just to try and start creating that backspin because the cue ball doesn't want to come back. Just another idea for you when you're practicing your screw back. Obviously, the shot I've just been doing there was screwing back into the pocket, which if you can do that, then that's fine. It's still an all right way of practicing. But sometimes, because the ball's coming back towards us, we'll have to obviously jump out the way, move out the way of the shot, which can also be a little bit uncomfortable, and sometimes it can take you away from the nice follow through that we need. So what I'd sometimes do in lessons, if sometimes people are struggling with the screw back because they're having to slightly try and move out the way of the shot, just set it up a slight angle like this, and I've just put a ball here just as a bit of a guide, just to see if we can screw back to the cushion now, but maybe either towards the red or just inside this red here. So if I do that, because the cue ball's coming back at an angle, it means I can just stay down nice and still and follow through, and I don't have to move out the way. So you can see there, I've followed right through the shot and the ball hasn't hit us because now it's coming back on that slight angle. So I quite often, like I say, use that in lessons because it's just promoting us doing that nice finishing position and staying down on the shot longer and getting the proper follow through. And then obviously the cue balls, we can still see getting a good amount of screw there. If you do it and the cue ball's coming, obviously I've just got a slight angle there. If the cue ball's coming back too wide, so just to give you an example, if I do that similar angle, but the cue ball starts coming back wider like that, then some people think that's a good shot, but you can see there my tip, it's probably a little bit too high on the follow through. So that's quite a good indication there because I've stayed down. It's shown me exactly where I've followed through the ball. On my screw shot, I should be probably about there. And then that shot I've finished a bit higher. So because I've hit a little bit higher, that's why the cue ball has now come back a different line basically. So, you know, little things again, we're learning today on how to play with basic spin, but also what we're starting to do is learn and get the feedback of actually what the cue ball, how it's reacting, and even off a slight angle now. Right, now we're just going to look at the spin shots again, but just on a slightly longer shot. So the cue ball is pretty much in the same place as what we had before, but now the red you can see is further away and closer to the pocket. So what I would say is generally your top spin shot is going to be pretty much the same, to be honest with you, as even if when the red was in the middle of the table. The pace, obviously, to get the cue ball to move forward, it wouldn't really change hardly at all. The main 2 shots we would have to start adjusting a bit more on would obviously be the stun and the screw back shot. So because it's a longer shot, obviously generally in a game as well, if we want to play a stun shot, then we need to start creating more backspin basically because it's a longer shot. So the easiest way of doing that is obviously just hitting lower on the cue ball. Again, what people try to do is they come to the shot and they think of, right, I'm going to try and play a stun shot, and then they'll think of where to hit, to do that stun shot, go through, and then you can see there that basically the cue ball has still actually followed through into the pocket because they haven't created enough spin. So if that red was there, like we had before, that cue ball probably would have stopped pretty quickly. But now it doesn't because the spin is wearing off as it goes across the table. And by the time it's got to the red, there's basically no spin left. And then it just follows through like a topspin shot. So just to give you a good example of what I was saying there about the spin wearing off, is if I just play this cue ball to the pocket without the ball, and I'm going to put a little bit of spin on here, backspin, not too hard. So you can probably see there, the cue ball was spinning, probably about here maybe, and then the weight of the cue ball has took over, and then it started then turning to just topspin. So basically, if my red was anything from say middle of the table to just about here, the cue ball might have stopped or stunned a bit. But then obviously any further than that, the stun effect would have wore off, and the cue ball, even after I'd hit the object ball, would just still have carried forward. Right, so what we need to do is, my basic thing is for longer stun shots, we basically need to start just hitting lower on the cue ball. Almost, you might feel like you're playing a screw back shot. So again, I'll give you an example of that. So lower on the cue ball, a little bit harder because of the distance. And you can see there, stop pretty quickly. It might have even just spun back just a fraction, but that way there, I know that my tip position's good, and obviously the pace of the shot again is what I want. Obviously, again, generally in a game, if you in a game situation, you want to be playing these shots like a stun shot or even a screw back, because obviously we don't want the cue ball to go in the pocket during a game. So this can be really useful for them kind of shots. So do another one nice and low, and just let the cue do the work. Nice backswing and follow through. A little bit of spin there, but that's fine. I would much rather, when you're doing these shots, practicing, I'd much rather you're trying to get used to having a little bit more spin than obviously not enough. Because then obviously that's just a safer shot. The cue ball is going to be away from the pocket and the cushions. And then obviously ultimately it's going to make your next shot a bit easier. So now if we want to try and play obviously your screw back shot from this position, it's obviously getting harder to do. Again, because of that distance, we're going to have to start creating a bit more cue power. And that's where, you've got to do these things gradually. Like I say, it could take a bit of time. You've got to have a bit of patience to work through these different shots. And especially, like I say, the longer shots, this is where it gets a bit more difficult. But again, I'll just talk you through how I do it. And it's something that you could just maybe build up towards, of seeing how far you can, start getting the screw from these positions. So my setup's exactly the same, nice and low. Then the only thing I really change is the length of my backswing is going to be a lot longer. So it comes right back there. And then that's allowing us to generate more power through the shot, generate more speed through the bottom of the ball. So a long backswing, follow through, quite firm there. And you can see I've got a lot more backspin all the way to the cushion here. So just slightly offline again, but you're going to find with more power, you do start to lose a tiny bit of control. So that would be a lot harder for me to screw back into that pocket. Again, I would be able to do it maybe, give a few goes, I would definitely start being able to do that. But I think just being able to generate that much spin, it's showing you that your technique is in a good place and that you're hitting the cue ball obviously where you want, and you're controlling that power. So again, the main thing I'm going to change from there, from my setup, is a longer backswing right back here to generate the power. And what we'll have to do is keep everything nice and still through the whole shot. So we're not going to move. That's why things start going wrong. Again, I'm not going to point down in the shot too much. That's when we could start miscuing with backspin. I want the cue nice and parallel. Bottom of the ball, we've got to stay nice and still. Long backswing. Accelerate right through the bottom. That time, lovely and straight back into the pocket. So even that there, when I'm doing it with a bit of power as well, to be honest with you, it doesn't feel like I'm out of control, or it doesn't feel like I'm really throwing me arm and me body at it. And that's just, again, because of the practice and stuff we've done with the setup in the cue action and just letting the cue do the work. So another good practice routine for you to try is this one. You might look familiar from the last episode where we're doing potting angles. And basically now the next step on from that is going through these 5 potting angles and doing each shot with them 3 different spin shots that we've just been doing. So what you're starting to do now is obviously put the pot together with obviously playing some spin, and also you're going to start learning of how the cue ball is going to react in what kind of areas the cue ball is obviously going to go into. And this is how you're going to start building up your knowledge of, like I say, cue ball control. So I'm not going to do the straight shot because we've done that quite a lot today already. So I'm going to move on to one of the angle shots. And then again, I'm just going to try and play top spin, pot the ball, and then I'll see how the cue ball's reacting. So nice and high. Probably done similar strength to what I did the first shot when I was running into the pocket. And just seeing there how a bit of an angle there, how wide it's actually come off the object ball, hit the cushion and down the table. So again, I would do that shot quite a few times just to give you some good feedback for how you're playing, playing these different spin shots. Also important at the moment, because we're just doing these basic 3 shots. We want to try and be hitting as central as possible. Then that's just going to keep things nice and consistent. So I've got the same angle now, and now I'm going to try a stun shot. So let's see where that goes. So nice stun shot there, and you can see that the cue ball has pretty much went straight down the middle of the table. So what I'm starting to see there is from that angle that basically anything from top spin to stun is going to take me over this side of the table. And that's how I'm basically going to start, like I say, building up the knowledge of what I can actually do with the cue ball. Same angle again. Now we're going to do screw back. So nice and low. Pot the ball there, screw back, come back this. Obviously now it's going to start coming back to this side of the table towards where I am. So like I say, you've got to repeat these shots quite a lot to get the feel for them and keep an eye on how consistent the cue ball is going into them areas, so you know as well that you're hitting the cue ball where you want. So again there, it's just giving me an idea. Top spin, it's took us over that side. Stun, right down the middle of the table, and screw back to this side. So basically I could get the cue ball in theory anywhere sort of in that spectrum on the table just by hitting top of the white And then what you can start doing, which I'm going to do in a future video, is actually just working your tip gradually down the cue ball, and you can actually start putting the cue ball almost anywhere you want down here just by moving your tip either up or down. We don't need to be using side spin for these shots. A lot of people think from this angle even here to get the cue ball down the table that they have to put, say, a right spin on to go down. You don't have to. The angle of the shot is actually going to do a lot of the work for us. So again, you want to go through these shots. You've got all the 5 angles there. You could do this on, obviously, blues. You could do pinks as well and blacks, like I showed you through the different potting routines from episode 2. And like I say, have a good few goes of each one. You can spend as little or as long as you want. But obviously, the more practice and repetition you put in, that's going to obviously ultimately pay off, and you start really getting confident with, you know, how the spin's going to react from these different potting angles. So again, leave us a comment below of how you're getting on with your practice. If there's anything else you want us to include in some of me future videos. Like I said as well last week, I'm trying to do this is interactive as well. So if you just want to send in any videos or with what you're doing, if things are going a little bit wrong, and we can maybe look to see how we can fix that for you. Make sure if you subscribe to the channel. That really helps us to continue to grow the channel and bring all this content out for you as much as we can. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.